Okay, hi everyone. My name is Chongsa Kim. I lead Google Play Games partnership for the Japan market in Tokyo. As you may know, Japan is one of the largest markets in the space of mobile gaming, and that is true for Google Play as well. Looking at successful games in the Japan market is actually playing a really big role, and the developers are putting it at the center of their growth strategy. And more interestingly, what they are doing for RipeUp is sometimes quite unique and from those in the Western regions. So today, I'm going to talk about the latest trends of RipeUps in Japan and also share key insights and the best practices run from there. Okay? So here's today's agenda for you. So first of all, I'm going to talk about what the RipeUps is and explain why it's important for you as a game developers. And then I'm going to explain a bit about the key market difference between Japan and the Western Europe, and then move on to the case studies from Japan and the lessons learned from there. So what is RipeUps? I think many of you have already heard of this definition, but the RipeUps is running games as a service. The characteristics of the smartphone as an always connected device actually allow the game developers to frequently interact with the end users by providing additional content and information as a service, which does not necessarily involve the traditional APK updates. So when these services are provided in the right way, it actually drives user engagement, stimulates monetization, and even reduces player churn, which has a significant impact on the life cycle of your game. So what happens when the service is not enough for your end users? So this is a typical revenue trend curve that the games that delivers content only via traditional APK updates, but not via RipeUps. For each update, you see some spikes in revenue, but it slows down pretty fast. And you cannot maintain active users by the next update, and the spike size gets smaller and smaller each time. We call this a shark fin curve problem, and obviously this is not ideal if you want to make your game sustainable. So in what way does RipeUp solve this problem? So RipeUp is basically the strategic distribution of frequent content updates in between these large APK updates. These are basically categorized into two things, the sales and events, and both of them often contain the new content into your game economy. And typically, these are provided in a limited time basis, so which is a key for you to motivate your users to participate actively in the activities happening inside your game. When these sales and events are provided in the right way, RipeUps can drive a consistent heartbeat of revenue and engagement, and which helps you to avoid shark fin curve problem for your game. Okay, so that is RipeUps. And from here, I'd like to touch a bit about the key market difference between Japan and Western Europe. What's unique about Japan in the context of RipeUps? So first of all, Japan is the really RipeUp-heavy market compared with the Western regions, and its daily revenue fluctuates a lot due to the high frequency of the RipeUps. One of the reasons behind this is the popularity of the Gacha model. The Gacha is the in-game lottery system, which is widely adopted to the top grossing Japanese games as a core monetization mechanics. Because Gacha is a really good fit with limited time sales and events, so Japanese developers run a lot of these as a driver for their revenue and monetization. Of course, they're also running a lot of other types of events like in-game login bonus and in-game quests, but the Gacha is something we cannot ignore as an important part of Japanese RipeUps culture. And another reason for the huge fluctuation of daily revenue in Japan is the first day of the month spike tradition. Japan is known as a country where DCB is really popular form of payment among the mobile users. And as you know, the DCB has a monthly cap, so if you hit the cap in the middle of the month, you have to wait until the next first day of the month, because the cap gets refreshed on that day. So knowing that timing, Japanese developers always bring the most powerful RipeUps event on the first day of the month. And the Japanese users also know that is the best timing to use money in the game. So the combination of this developer strategy and user behavior actually comes together and always causes the huge revenue spike on the first day of the month for most of the games altogether, which is pretty unique for the Japan market, I think. Okay, so here's a quick quiz regarding the uniqueness of Japanese RipeUps. I mentioned that Japan is pretty RipeUps heavy market, but how many in-game RipeUps events were actually run by a single top grossing Japanese title in the month of March 2017? It would be great if you guys can participate in a quiz by raising your hands. Who thinks A, less than 10? No one. B, 10 to 50? A few. C, 50 to 100. D, 100 to 200. Looks popular. And E, over 200. Okay. Seems like D and E are the most popular options here. So let's see the answer. The answer is E. Congratulations for those who chose E. Sorry, no prize for this quiz. No t-shirts, okay? I think now you guys are interested in what the exact number is. So let's see the exact number in the next slide. The answer is 1,028. Thanks for the reaction. Yeah, actually 1,000 events in a month, which sounds like a big number. And this is just an example, but now you see how serious and how committed Japanese games are regarding the communication with the users through the LiveOps. So from here, I'm going to talk a bit about the case studies from actual Japanese top grossing games to do a bit more deep dive into their RipeUp strategies. The first one is the Monster Strike by Mixi Extract Studio, one of the most popular and successful Japanese games since its launch 4 years ago. So this is a quick overview of the Monster Strike's RipeUps event in a given month. As you can see, they're running 1,000 RipeUps events in a month, which ranges from the Gacha Event for monetization and the bird size of the in-game quest for the purpose of the engagement uplift. What's interesting here to me is that they are running so many system and guerrilla events, which is basically an hour or a few hours long, super short micro quest operated systematically. You know, if you run like 900 events in a month by manual, you need a lot of work, and it's almost impossible. So Mixi actually designed a game from the scratch to be able to offer these micro quests effectively and efficiently by system and automation, so that they are able to deploy such large number of quests in a month. However, please think about it. If you have like hundreds of RipeUps in your game, it is very easy for your users to get lost if they don't understand which one matters for them. So it is really important for you to organize the RipeUps event to avoid your users get swamped by the flood of the RipeUps. So from the next slide, I'm going to introduce you how Mixi is actually designing the RipeUps calendar in the yearly, monthly, and the daily basis. Okay. The first one is yearly cycle. For the character-based game like Monster Strike, the best content for monetization is always the additional legendary character, which has a significant skills and parameters. So Mixi basically runs this type of flagship heavy, RipeUps Gacha events every 3 months, considering the seasonality and so on. According to Mixi, the once in 3 months is kind of magic number from their 4 years experience, because if users are exposed too frequently to this, this type of heavy events, they get tired of catching up and eventually leave the game. So rather than increasing the number of these heavy RipeUps events, the Mixi rather focuses on maximizing the revenue spike for each of them. And zooming into the monthly cycle, Monster Strike generally has a consistent beat of the revenue spike in a bi-weekly basis. This is because they are following the first day of the month spike tradition in the Japan market, and also place the mid-sized RipeUps in between these to keep your core users engaged. Precisely speaking, they're actually running a lot of other events in between these, but they stick to this cadence for the strong Gacha event to keep the good rhythm of excitement for the their core users, which is especially for the paying users. And they also cares a lot about when to deploy what kind of events in a day from the relevancy point of view. For example, that they deploy the gacha events typically around the lunchtime because they want their users who just got a new character through the gacha to show off that to your real friends who are eating the lunch together and hopefully play the game together. And on the other hand, regarding the quests that require some level of concentration, they typically deploy these around the commute time or after the dinner when users typically play the game alone with a lot of concentration. So in these ways, Mixi is carefully designing the LiveOps calendar to help their users enjoy the surfing on the various sides of the waves of the LiveOps. So now let's do a bit more deep dive into one of the flagship LiveOps event, which happens only once in 3 months. The example here is a special gacha event, which featured the new legendary character called Pandora, this cute girl. And this event was especially successful for Mixi because it drove like 150% year-on-year increase in revenue. So let's take a look at Mixi's efforts behind this big moment. The first one is quantity control of in-game currencies owned by users. When you have like huge monetization moment in your game in terms of RipeUps, it is very important to create an ideal status of the in-game economy beforehand. For example, if users have too many unconsumed in-game currencies already, they just spend these when RipeUps comes in, and they don't really purchase new IAP, which could be a problem for your monetization. So Mixi actually tracks the quantity of in-game currencies owned by users as one of the key metrics and accumulated small RipeUps before the flagship, the gacha event, and created ideal state of in-game economy prior to the big monetization moment for the game. And also, they went beyond in-game operations and added out of the game's media mix activities to promote the LiveOps event. For example, this character, Pandora, was introduced first in the YouTube anime of Monster Strike 3 days before the actual in-game event. And then the details of the characters, like skills and parameters, got revealed in their in-house influencer video on the YouTube. And then a TV commercial was aired to promote this RipeUps campaign after that. I know it sounds like a lot of investment, but for Mixi, actually it was a really natural thing because they are putting it at the center of their monetization strategy. And even more, they added several significant marketing activities before the Pandora Gacha event, which includes like massive giveaway of in-game items and even the real goods, like a travel ticket, to the active users of the Monster Strike during the holiday seasons, and also the large-scale fan community event and the esports tournament, which gathered over 20,000 people in Tokyo on site. So these marketing activities were not directly related to this specific gacha event, but strategically placed before that to maximize the active user base to make the big monetization moment after that. So what's the result by doing all of these? So here's a chart you'd be interested in. Actually, Monster Strike had been facing the steep decline of the monthly active user base for the first half of the 2016. However, by providing the good mix of in-game operations and out of the game marketing activities, they could achieve the beautiful V-shaped recovery of the monthly active users, and it resulted in the great financial success of the Pandora Gacha event after that. When talking about RipeUps, people tend to focus too much on the just in-game activities, but actually it drives more impact on your business if it's nicely blended with the out of the game's marketing activities. So this is a very good example, I think. Okay, so that was the Pandora Gacha event example. And let me talk about some other cases as well. When talking about Japan unique RipeUps culture, IP collaboration is something I cannot ignore, which is very popular among Japanese developers. For example, collaborating with popular games IP, comic IP, anime IP is very popular among the Japanese games because it is very effective to bring the new surprise to your existing audience base and also reach out to the entire new audience base through the power of the different IP. And this kind of collaboration can also happen with the non-game offline brands as well. So this is my favorite example, but the Monster Strike actually collaborated with the Baskin Robbins recently, a popular ice cream franchise store. And they actually created a special quest in the game. And when users clear the quest, they could get the free ice cream coupon inside the game. And if I'm not biased, everyone loves ice cream, right? So actually, Monster Strike could make their users happy by giving away free ice cream. And in return, Baskin Robbins could drive the actual people to the store and even enhance their brand awareness with this. This case is quite interesting to me because it shows me how wide the scope of RipeUp is. If it makes sense for you and your partner, you can even distribute your ice cream to your users in the context of the RipeUps. Okay, so that was the Mixi case. And I'd like to introduce you another case from the other Japanese developer, KRAV, and the game is Bleach Brave Souls. When designing RipeUps, taking a data-driven approach is really effective and important. So here, I'd like to introduce you how sophisticated developers like KRAV is designing the effective RipeUps based on the insights gained through the in-game data log analytics. This slide shows the basic KPIs that the KRAV analytics team is looking at, which includes monetization KPI like revenue and ARPPU, and engagement KPIs like churn rate, and the new user KPIs, including installs and 7-day retention. To extract key insights, the KRAV analytics team actually look at these KPIs from 4 different user segmentation angles, which includes in-game status, install timing, login frequency, and the spend range. So here, I'd like to introduce you one interesting case where KRAV team found the very good insight looking at the in-game status segmentation. So Bleach Brave Soul has a character build-up function called the skill board. And the KRAV team found that the combination of this skill board progression and the maximum rarity of the character that the users own is actually one of the best angles to look at the health status of the overall in-game balance. When they look at key engagement KPIs from this user segmentation angle, they found that the users who own the 6-star rarity character but hasn't completed the skill board yet actually has a significant churn rate compared with other groups of users. And even worse, this group of people represented the over 20% of the total consumer spend for this game. So it was a problem. So to solve this problem, the KRAV added new quests that help users to complete the 6-star skill board easily. And by doing so, the users who complete the skill board and go up to the next level actually increased from 4% to 9.7% month over month. And even significantly, the churn rate of this specific group decreased by 11.8% compared from the previous months. As I said, this group of users represented the 20% of the total consumer spend. So now you see how impactful it was for the Bleach Brave Soul team. Okay. So it was quick, but hope you enjoyed some fresh case studies shared from the Mixi and the KRAV team. So now I'd like to summarize today's key takeaways from these case studies. So here's 4 key pillars I talked today. The first one is the RipeUps design. So if you want to make the most out of the RipeUps, you have to design your game with RipeUps in mind. I think Mixi's system event functionality is one of the great examples of doing this. And also, you have to design strategic cycle of RipeUps if you would like to run a lot of RipeUps. Otherwise, your users get swamped by the flood of RipeUps. And also, the control in-game economy, which is very important, so you shouldn't forget about it. And the third, go beyond simple RipeUps. When talking about RipeUps, people tend to focus too much on just in-game activities. But when it's nicely branded with out-of-the-game marketing activities, you can actually generate more impact on your business. And the collaboration with other IPs and brands could be an interesting idea for you if you want to reach out to the entirely new audience base. And lastly, user behavior is always a great source of insights. So if you want to be really effective and efficient in creating the new RipeUps events for your game, taking a data-driven approach would work pretty well for you. Okay, so thanks for listening. That's all from me today. So if you have any questions, I would like to take these.